Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Take Two podcast. As everybody knows, we typically dive into all things NFL. Today, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're diving into the Heisman race, something that's been kind of controversial over the last couple of weeks. A lot of arguments both sides, and we're going to kind of get into our opinions, but also kind of facts-based arguments for both sides and who should win it. Those of you who are new to the channel, thanks for coming in. We've got a good episode here for you guys. We're really excited to get into this one. We are your Frame brothers, of course. I am Jamison Frame, accompanied by my brother, Reed Frame. We are here every Tuesday talking all things football. Like I said, mostly NFL. This kind of translates because both these guys are going to be coming into the NFL draft next year. So without further ado, um, unless you got something crazy off the wall, the conversation today is going to be Travis Hunter or Ashton Genty for Heisman, correct?
Give me Carson Beck.
Okay, yeah. I don't know about that, man.
But these two guys, if I'm gonna be completely honest, no matter what I say in the rest of this episode, both these guys deserve this award. These two are amazing players, amazing seasons, right?
Yep.
They got unlucky. They got unlucky that they're in the same season playing against each other. That if I saw on social media, what if we split the award? What if they both get a Heisman?
No,
And I
I
was
don't
like,
like that. No
I
participation.
I wasn't as opposed to it as I thought I was going to be. Like, yes, the Heisman should be one player. I'm sticking to that. But if there was a time to split the Heisman, right now would be the time.
Yeah, if you weren't going to say it, I was going to say it. I think both of these guys have had seasons worthy of a Heisman Award. It's just unlucky that they had to have them both in the same season. So basically, what we're going to be trying to decide today is kind of in our opinions based on the information that we have, who is more deserving of it this year based on that. So, um, do you have your winner on who you believe should be it?
I think it should be Ashton Genty.
Okay, I believe it should be Travis Hunter. For those who don't know and who haven't been looking at like sports betting books and whatnot, Travis Hunter is the betting favorite by quite a bit. Like he basically the odds are saying like he has no shot to lose it at this point, but there still is the debate on all social media and everybody's kind of talking about it. Who deserves it, who should win, why, X, Y, and Z. So without further ado, I guess kick off. If you have a main point of argument, or where do you want to start with why you think Genty deserves it?
I want to let you start.
You want me to start
I
with
want you to
why
start.
Genty doesn't deserve it, or why Hunter deserves it? Where do you want me to start?
Why Hunter deserves it.
So I believe Travis Hunter deserves to win the Heisman this year for the simple fact that he is doing something that we have never seen done in college football before. Now, there have been other athletes who have played both ways, but not to the extent and not to the production levels that Travis Hunter has put out there, right? So he has played a couple of stats of note. He has played 400 and he has played a total of 1,102 snaps over the course of this season. Set 475 snaps of those have been offensive, 631 of those have been defensive. He has also played 32 on special teams. Now, that is something never been done before. That is an average of like 114, just under 115 snaps per game, which is remarkable, right? So, without even talking production wise, what he's doing in those snaps, the fact that he's playing both ways practically every play is incredible in itself, right?
Yeah, the one argument I have against that is snaps are never anything. I think production is a huge thing.
I agree.
I did expect you to say that, so I did come up with my counter argument here.
Okay.
Um, Snaps, like I said, snaps aren't everything. I have my comparisons to the NFL. If snaps meant everything, CJ Stroud would be your best quarterback,
Okay.
which isn't crazy. Kyren Williams would be your best running back. DJ Moore would be your best wide receiver.
Okay.
Dalton Schultz would be your best tight end. And Zaire Franklin would be your best defensive player.
Okay. Yeah, that's a fair argument. I don't 100% agree that snaps mean everything, right? I'm just saying what
I'm
he's
just saying
doing
if
has
yeah.
never been done. I'm just laying the groundwork for that, right? Now let's
Mhm.
dive into the production that he has done in all those snaps, right? So according to PFF, he has the second highest coverage grade out of all defensive backs in college football. Now, PFF is a very controversial website. Some people like it, some people don't, just because of some of the statistics that they use are kind of um, they're not regulated. I guess it's just kind of weirder stats than just your basic ones, right? So it's kind of a controversial website. So take that as you will. PFF has him as the second highest coverage grade corner and the fifth highest wide receiver grade. So essentially, he is top five at both wide receiver and defensive back in the league, which is incredible. Now he is also top five in receiving yards, receptions, and receiving touchdowns on the season. So his stats on the season, he has 92 catches for 1,152 yards and 14 touchdowns. That is offensive production. His defensive production, he has 31 tackles for 11 pass defense and four interceptions. So those are his your basic stats that you look at when you're comparing kind of any player in the league or in college. Those are the stats you're going to look at. So right away, those numbers aren't going to jump off the page at you. But the fact that he is top five on offense and he's also top five on defense, along with those snaps, is what I was trying to get at. Is this is something that we've never seen before. And similar to like Shohei Ohtani, I know these are very different comparisons. I'm kept comparing apples to oranges here. Shohei is an elite at both sides of the ball. Travis Hunter is not. Well, I guess he would be elite just because he's top five, but he is not the best at offense and he's not the best at defense, but he is in the elite range for both. So that is my main argument on why I think he deserves Heisman. Is something we've never seen before.
Just unicorn, you could say.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to say like it's not something we have seen before, right? That it's for sure something we've never seen before. Um, the one argument I have is his team doesn't win, right? My one argument is Ashton Genty plays one side of the ball and he took his team to the playoffs. Travis Hunter couldn't do that playing both sides of the ball.
Yeah, you have that argument there. You also have the difference in strength of schedule, right? So you have a team that's in the Pac-12 and you have a team that is in the Mountain West. So according to ESPN, the strength of schedule, Boise State had the 86th difficulty of schedule, and Colorado had
75th now.
69th. Was it different?
75th. It's 75th now because Oregon's ranked number one.
Okay, so it altered from when I looked up the stats a couple days ago. So slightly different than what I had. Regardless, they had a harder schedule than Colorado, not by much, as much as you will. The teams you look at, I mean, Genty's best game was against Georgia Southern, right? He put up 267 yards and six touchdowns against Georgia Southern.
My argument is who is the best team Travis Hunter played?
Uh, Kansas State.
He was injured.
Okay.
So who's the best team he played?
He had three catches in that game.
He had three catches, but he's injured.
Okay. I mean, he
He,
still played them. I mean,
he had three catches, and I'm pretty sure 26 yards caught on him. I mean, again, it's a pretty good stat line. I mean, if you're putting 26 yards up, I mean, or against you, that's pretty damn good. But Kansas State is your best team you're playing. He didn't play the full game.
the other team would be probably Utah, Kansas,
I would
Arizona.
say I would say
One of
Kansas.
those, one of
I would
those
say
teams.
Kansas. In Kansas, he had a great game, if I'm being
Right.
honest. Kansas, he did play an amazing game. My argument for why Genty played the best team in the country. I don't think you can argue that Oregon is not the best team in the country, right?
Yeah, Oregon's a great team.
Oregon is the best team.
Yep.
He put up 200 yards, three touchdowns with 25 carries.
Yeah, I did a little research into other teams that have played Oregon and the running backs that played against them. The
Mhm.
two I came up with was Ohio State had Travion Henderson had 10 carries for 87 yards and zero touchdowns, only because Judkins stole the touchdown from him in the split carries. So if you were to give Henderson the 25 carries that Genty would have had, Henderson would have actually had more yards and potentially more touchdowns, depending on how that workload gets split up.
So my
So
argument is,
argument
no. My argument is not invalid. So how many? Can you name me the receivers on Ohio State?
on Ohio State,
Mhm.
not all of them. I know they have Smith, Jeremiah Smith, something like that.
Mhm.
He is, and then they have Abuka.
Can you name me any receivers on Boise State?
I cannot.
There's my point. The defensive coordinator has to be threatened by the pass, not only the run. As I would hope, the defensive scheme is you can stack the box against a running back. You can stack the box pretty well. You can blitz, and when you can't name me a wide receiver on Boise State. To be fair, couldn't either. I couldn't even tell you the quarterback's name. Um, I'm gonna be blitzing pretty heavily if I'm Oregon, and he's still running for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. So as much as they wanted to stop Asher Genty, they didn't, and they're the best team in this country.
Yeah, that's fair. My point was there are other running backs who are having high production games against Oregon as well. So obviously, this isn't a standalone game that Oregon only gave up a big game to him, meaning they had a weakness to the run game in other games besides that one. Yes, Genty is the only player I know on Boise State, and before the season started, I didn't even know who Genty was. So take that as you will. Yes, he's put them on the map. He has brought them to the 11 seed, but he had the easiest road out of the top 25, arguably, to get there.
I can agree with that. I'm in the same boat. I couldn't name you another player on Boise State. I think I couldn't even name you the right tackle. I just know the right tackle's good. Um, yeah, but Ashton Genty, you could plausibly say he carried Boise State to the playoffs, and I think that's another reason why he should be in the Heisman. He should win the Heisman.
The other thing I want to bring up is I have two specific games that I pulled some stats from. So arguably Genty's best game of the season came against Georgia Southern, the first game of the year, right?
Mhm.
He had 20 carries for 267 yards and 6 touchdowns. Now, the backup running back for Boise State also had 12 carries for 110 yards and 1 touchdown. So this isn't something like, hey, Genty's just doing this. The backup running back is also averaging 9 yards a carry in this game as well. So one of this either had to do with obviously context is very important. I didn't watch this game. I don't know when these carries took place. This could have been late in the game. This could have been garbage time, stuff like that. I don't know. Given that the fact that the score was only 11 points leads me to believe that there wasn't really much garbage time in this game. I could be wrong. Um, but I think a lot of this has to do with one, it's a bad team. Two, they probably had a good offensive line. So I think it's hard to believe that Genty putting up 267 yards is that impressive on Georgia Southern when their backup's putting up 110 as well in the same game.
I can see your argument. The one thing I have against it is his yards after contact.
Yeah, I mean, if you have bad tacklers, though, that's going to happen. That it goes against bad teams.
Hey, your argument is the offensive line is good. I'm
I
not
don't know. I'm
saying
just saying it could be. It could be.
it could. I think their offensive line is pretty good. I'm not taking away from them. That is a pretty good offensive line. My thing is yards after contact. If he's getting contacted in the backfield, I don't care if he's making the tackle or not. No running back should be hit in the backfield. No running back should be hit within 4 yards of the line of scrimmage if the offensive line is doing their job. So his yards after contact being that good, that's my one argument to his offense line is good. It's just, yeah, you could say his offense line is carrying him. Then just look at that yards after contact stat.
Yeah, I think the stat is what he has more yards after contact than the second rusher has total yards. I think I've seen that.
Ashton Genty, I think, is 1 and 2 for yards after contact.
Yeah, it like I said, it's impressive. It's a great season. I don't want to take anything away from Genty. The whole thing I'm trying to portray here is that Genty had an easier road to get there to do something that has been done before. The the one person who has done this before, the one I want to bring up is Melvin Gordon in 2014. So if you look at Melvin Gordon's stats compared to Ashton Genty's stats, they're basically identical. So Melvin Gordon played in the Big Ten, obviously a harder conference, a lot harder games to do this on. He had 343 carries for 2,587 yards and 29 touchdowns. He also had 19 catches for 153 yards and 3 touchdowns. Genty's not much of a receiving back, so take that as you will. Now, Melvin Gordon also had 2 additional games to get these stats in, and he has, 30 more carries as well as 300 more yards. So essentially, I mean, it's very plausible, and Ashton Genty will most likely get to, if not surpass Gordon. But this is something that we've seen 10 years ago as a running back do this in a harder conference and a harder schedule. And even Melvin Gordon didn't win the Heisman that year.
I'm not gonna say Melvin Gordon didn't have a better year. He did have a better year. Melvin Gordon, yards, more touchdowns. My one thing to bring up is he fumbled more. He turned over the ball a lot more.
Sure. Sure.
And the only other argument I have is Wisconsin is a bigger school than Boise State. Um, Better conference, like you said, means you're bringing in better recruits. They got a better offensive line. They got a better everything. I think you could ultimately say the 2014 Wisconsin Badgers are better than the 2024 Boise State Broncos.
Sure, but does that offset the strength of schedule? You have a better team playing against other better schools versus you have a worse team playing against other worse schools. Wouldn't those two things kind of equal each other out?
I'm going right back to that Oregon game. That was within three scores. Ash and Genty put up three touchdowns. I'm pretty sure
Sure.
the final score was 37-35, I
34.
think.
Yep.
34. Three touchdowns equals I would say 21 points, but really it's yeah, you get it.
Assuming they make the extra point, it's 21. Yeah,
It's
it's
we're gonna go
21.
21 points.
Yep.
So Ashton Genty had over half the points scored for his team. So I'm just saying the one team that I would say Oregon is a better team than Wisconsin played any time that year. I would say Oregon is a better team. So yes, the other games that Wisconsin played were better than what Ashton Genty played, but the one game where he played the hardest game possible against the best team in the country, he did extremely well. I would say that was a great game.
Yeah, it definitely was. So that's the basis of my argument, right? We're seeing something from Aston Genti that has been done before. In fact, it's been done in the last 10 years. We're seeing something that's been never done before, production wise, at both sides of the football from Travis Hunter that has never been done before. Your
Mhm.
next closest, and the thing that people like to bring up would be Champ Bailey in 1998. So he played 1,070 snaps, which is relatively close to what Travis Hunter has played. He had more tackles, less than one less interception on defense that year, and he had 47 catches for 744 yards and five touchdowns. So significantly less offensive production in those set of snaps. So yes, snap wise, it has been done before. Specifically, one time I didn't look much past like the 90s. I didn't go into like the 80s and beyond to see if I could find anybody who's done something like this before. But in recent history, Champ Bailey is the closest thing, and production wise on both sides of the football, still, I would argue, wasn't as Hunter did this season.
The only other person I think of is Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders actually played both ways in college as well.
Okay.
He was a better corner than he was a receiver. I would say Deion is a better corner than Travis Hunter was in college, but he was a worse wide receiver. So however you take it, it's like, hey, Travis Hunter's here on defense, Deion's here on defense, Travis Hunter's here on offense, Deion's here on offense. So
Right.
they kind of balance out. So I would say those are pretty similar. That's the only other scenario I had where there was the two-way player.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're comparing Deion Sanders to Travis Hunter, yes, he was a better defensive player. But if you're comparing Deion Sanders to the league that he played in, everybody else he played in versus Travis Hunter, everybody he's playing with now. I mean, Travis Hunter is a top five defensive back in college football right now. And the one thing that I think surprised a lot of people, I know it surprised me and you, was the Jim Thorpe Award. The Jim Thorpe Award. The three finalists are Malachi Starks, uh, Jade Byron. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and then Caleb Downs. Um, the stats, there aren't many stats in college football like the next gen stats. Your quarterback rating against stuff like that. It's really hard to find in college. It's more kind of strictly for the NFL. So your basic stats that everybody kind of looks at are tackles, pass defense, and interceptions. Um, Starks, every one of those guys has more tackles than him. None of them have more pass defense or more interceptions than him. So if you're going off of strictly those stats that everybody likes to point out, Hunter would be better than all of them. Now,
I
I'm not as naive to believe that you just look at those stats and say that's how you rank defensive backs, right? There's a lot more to it. You have how many yards they give up, how many targets they have against them. Obviously, if a corner is never getting the ball thrown their way, one that speaks volumes to what the other team thinks of them. Secondly, it's going to be harder for them to pile up stats, right? So obviously, this does say something that they value these three guys ahead of him. But the statistics show, and PFF specifically is saying that he is a top five defensive back in college.
Just I want to throw out there the Jim Thorpe Award. Starks and Caleb Downs are both safeties as well. So
Correct.
they do
Yep.
play different positions. I know it's a DB award.
Right.
They both play safety. So there's a little difference in a corner and a safety. Caleb Downs actually plays like a middle linebacker. If you go watch an Ohio State game, Caleb Downs is in the box a lot. He's playing like a Cam Chancellor type of Jamal Adams, Harrison
Great
Smith.
player. Great player.
Caleb Down, if you go watch an OSU game, he is flying around that field. It is fun to watch. Caleb Downs is a dog. I've my radar on him has gone up. We're not talking about him right now. Caleb Downs is a great player. I want to go with Ashton Genty. I want to go back to the Melvin Gordon Ashton Genty thing.
Sure.
Um, I want to ask you, who is the best running back of all time? Emmitt Smith or Barry Sanders?
NFL or college?
NFL. Emmitt Smith or Barry Sanders?
Um, uh, I'm gonna go Emmett Smith only because Barry didn't play longer, right? So he had longevity to him. I think Barry Sanders was on pace to be the best, but because he retired early, it goes to Emmett Smith by default.
Okay, so
Like more so.
talent wise is
Well,
Barry.
talent wise, I think Barry Sanders was the best, but like just career wise, Emmett Smith
All
was.
right, I can get that. So what I'm saying right now is Wisconsin Melvin Gordon is Emmitt Smith. Ashton Genty, Boise State is our Barry Sanders. Boise State is not a good team. The Lions were not a good team. Barry Sanders did everything he could, and he carried that Lions team. And Ashton Genty carried that Broncos team, right? And I would
Sure.
say a lot of people say Barry Sanders is the best running back of all time. He just didn't have a good team. He didn't play long enough. There's a lot of excuses. Barry
Right.
Sanders, in my opinion, is the best running back of all time. Talent-wise, for sure. If he played 2 more years, I think he would have taken the crown for sure. I think it would have been undisputed. You couldn't make the argument that Emmitt Smith was better. Emmitt Smith, amazing offensive line. You're running behind Larry Allen. I mean, if I'm running behind Larry Allen, I could do some nasty stuff too, right? Larry Allen's a dog, but Emmitt Smith, better offensive line, played for a lot longer. So my argument is, if Barry Sanders is a better talent wise than Emmitt Smith, then Ashton Genty should also be a better talent wise than Melvin Gordon.
Well, that's all fine and dandy to say. I mean, we can talk about who's more talented, but at the end of the day, it kind of matters what you did, your production on the field. And that's really what this comes down to, right? It's who was the best college football player based on what they did, not who's a better athlete or who's more talented, right? And that's the thing. Like Ashton Genty was far and away the best running back in college football this year. Not even close. Like there is no debate there. And this is a really good running back class that's going into the NFL this year. There are a lot of good running backs this year. So that is saying a lot towards Genty. So go down him, and I'm happy for him. This just comes down to, productivity and what they did on the field this year. Like, regardless of who's better at one position than the other. I hear that argument a lot, right? Genty is the best at his position. How could Hunter win the Heisman when he's not even the best at one position?
I completely agree with you. That should not be based an argument based on that.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's where the position awards come in. If you're the best at your position, then you should get that position award. That's why I don't agree with the Travis Hunter not winning the Jim Thorpe Award. That I completely disagree. Travis Hunter should win it.
Oh,
I'm
I
not
agree.
saying he should. Travis Hunter should win that. For the Heisman, my another argument I kind of went over this is it's hard. It's easier to stop a running back than it is to stop a wide receiver.
Um, you say it's easier?
It's easier to stop a running back than it
I
is to stop a receiver.
I disagree. Yeah, kind of. Contextually, I disagree. So I disagree in the sense that you could just double cover a receiver every play.
Not when you have Shadir Sanders in the backfield with other wide receivers that he can throw to and he's proven to throw to. Not when you have a good running back in the backfield.
Right, but if he's throwing to other people, then you're taking away the wide receiver. So it'd be the same concept for the running backs, right?
But all right,
You could just run
I,
cover zero every play, and they're gonna
that's what
throw
they
it
did.
because they have a better matchup on the outside.
That's what they did run cover. If you watch in Boise State game, they stacked the box. They had 9 players in the box at sometimes, and Ashton Genty still cribbed it. All right, I'm saying right now, you said you can just double cover a receiver.
Sure.
Why didn't they? What's your
Because
goal as a head coach?
win the football game.
Win the football game.
All you care about. Right.
You can take Travis Hunter out of the game, but you're going to lose the football game because now you can't cover the rest of the defense. You got to stop the team. You can't stop the player.
Well, right.
So
That was kind of the basis of my argument against your argument, right? Who's easier to take out? Like you can devote all 11 guys to stopping Genty and leave nobody on the outside and they could just dunk and dunk over the top of you. Like you can stop Genty. You could have 0 carries in a game, but you're going to lose the game by 100 because you're leaving other guys open. Obviously, that's
I,
a very
I,
unrealistic conversation. I'm argument I'm throwing at you, but I think you can easily take a receiver out of the game by sliding a corner over the top or giving better matchups to other wide receivers that they're going to try and take advantage of and stop throwing to the wide
hmm,
receiver.
I get
I think
that.
there's easier matchups that you can pick and choose with wide receiver wise than loading the box with 9 guys and hoping you can stop them.
Yeah, I can see that. But I'm saying this. I'm trying to like say, hey, Ashton Genty's stats are more deserved than Travis Hunter's stats. Is the point I'm getting at? Because Travis Hunter was very rarely double teamed because he couldn't be. The defenses couldn't afford to double team him. They had way too many threats else. So Travis Hunter had way more opportunities than Ashton Genty had. He was getting open because he was in single coverage. And I'm not Travis Hunter is a great player. I'm not saying hey he just played against bum corners. They were good corners. He was burning them. He was toasting them. But double coverage is a lot harder than single coverage. Ashton Genty was running against a 9-player box, and he was still going for 60 yards. It's not like he was running against these 3 down linemen that hey let's just kick him out. Ashton Genty get to the second level and just make a guy miss and you're gone. No, he's breaking 3 tackles, breaking to the second level, having to juke out a safety, then he's gone. I think Ashton Genty's yards are way more deserved than Travis Hunter's or
There
earned, I
were
should
a
say.
couple of games where that Boise State threw the ball over 35 times in the game. So
That is true.
yes, they're handing him the ball 20 plus maybe 30 even times a game, but they're also throwing the ball 30 times a game, meaning they are keeping the defense in check, probably throwing deep balls to keep the safeties back slightly. They're obviously still creeping down into the box, but that is a way to open up some run game and
I
whatnot.
agree.
There's some
Um,
scheme play going on.
I agree. Like there's always scheme play. Football
Right.
is not a football is becoming not just a physical game, it's a mental game now. Back in the 80s, it was just a physical game. Hey, who's stronger? I can move you. Now we win, right? It's becoming a mental game. Hey, got to be prepared for that deep fade. You got to be prepared for that slant route. It's a mental game now. My argument against that is Ashton Genty almost had more yards than his quarterback had throwing.
Yeah, I mean they had their team was Ashton Genty. I'm never going to dispute that, right? They full steam ahead. The other team knew what they were going to do, and they had a hard time stopping. I will agree. The biggest argument for Genty was the Oregon game because of how good of a game he had. But apart from that, the other games that they played, it's hard to like. Yeah, they knew they were going to do it, but like they didn't have a good enough team to stop them. Right? You don't have high level talent that can cover like a good running back, an elite level running back, potentially a first round pick running back compared to linebackers and defensive linemen that are never going to sniff the NFL. Like the player comparison talent is so skewed out of whack that it like that's probably what you're going to get. Now the Oregon game, I mean, that my argument is almost helping that Oregon game because a lot of those guys are going to play in the NFL, so that game is still impressive, but it wasn't his best game, and he had 200 plus yard games with a lot more touchdowns than other games that were just kind of they fill up the stat sheet and they help his totals for the end of the year. But that's what's going to happen. I mean, you have the same thing happening with Travis Hunter, right? You had games where he had slightly easier teams and he had a little more catches and more touchdowns and stuff like that. That's what you do against bad teams. So you
Oklahoma State, right? Um,
correct.
Except my Oklahoma State game, Travis Hunter went off in that game.
Yeah, he looked
If
great.
you want to say, hey, drop the mic, this is why I should be a Heisman. Do that on your last game of the season, right there, right?
That's what he
Yeah,
was going for, right?
yeah. My argument against that is Travis Hunter got hurt against the best team he played, right? And then he didn't miss time on wide receiver or anything against the bad teams. Two teams that they were blowing out, the quote unquote bad teams or the stat pad teams, right? Ashton Genty was taken out by the half. Ashton Genty didn't play the entire second half. Against, I believe, I don't remember what team it was, but he was taken out at half with 186 yards. He would have been well over 300 if he played that full game. Well over 300.
That'd be the Utah State game.
No, it was the other one. It
That'd be the
was,
only. Is that's his only 186 game. He had
let
13
me let
carries,
me look.
186, and three touchdowns. They won 62-30. That really makes
I
sense.
think
That's that
I
game.
believe that was one game that he was taken out.
Yeah, it'd be Utah State. The
Let
other
me
one
take a
you
look
had is
here.
San Diego State or San Jose State.
Oh, games. It was Portland State, 56 to 14.
Oh, 11 carries for 127.
I got my stat line wrong. I might have mixed that up. I'm sorry, but he was taken out at half.
Right. I mean, that was another game I pulled some of the stats from the backups in. I mean, the backups are raking in that game too. He wasn't even the most efficient running back they had on the field that day.
It's a bad team. Like, I'm not gonna say it's a good team, right? All I'm saying is every school every year has a stat pad game, has
Correct.
multiple stat pad games. Melvin Gordon, I promise you, that 2014 had a stat pad game. If he
Yeah,
plays
I'd have
this
to dive
full,
into it.
if he plays this full game, he passes Melvin Gordon in yards.
Well, sure, but you have to look at yards per carry, right?
Yards per carry against this team, that would have he is at what, like 7.5, I believe. If he plays this full game, I promise you he's at 8. He plays
Right.
a
No,
full game against Utah State, he's
you're
at 8.5.
so your argument is if he would have played the full game, right? So then you have to contextualize the stats, right? So right now, Genty has 30 less carries than Melvin Gordon did in 2014, and he also has 300 less yards. I'm rounding. So he would need to average 10 yards a carry on his next 30 carries in order to equal Melvin Gordon.
Against all right, I don't get to pick a team. That's not fair, right? I'm not going to
Right.
pick a team. Yeah.
So even yeah, if he did pad the stats in that game, he might have tied them, and then you could say they had an equal season. But then you could still compare Melvin Gordon. So you could say, yeah, they each had one game that they statted, but Pat statted. But then Melvin Gordon still had a harder schedule the rest of the way, and he still was averaging more yards per carry than Genty is this year.
That again, that goes back to wait, Genty is 7.5. What was Gordon?
Genty is 7.3, Melvin Gordon is
7.3.
7.5.
So point 0.2. Do you
Yeah,
have
so like I
do you have
said, in order to catch him, he would need to average 10 yards a carry on his next 30 carries.
their yards per contact
I do not. I didn't
or
dive into it.
yards after contact, sorry?
No.
If I can find it, I'll show you that Melvin Gordon was running behind a better offensive line, and I can almost guarantee you that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's arguing that Genty has a better offensive line than Wisconsin did in 2014. He's also not facing stacked boxes where he's going to have to break a couple of tackles in order to get more yards.
Who? Ashton Genty?
Melvin Gordon isn't going to have to
Yeah.
face the stacked boxes like Genty did. So yeah, Genty's probably getting what hit 1 yard behind the line of scrimmage.
He's
So
getting,
basically
yeah.
every play that he runs, he's going to have positive yards after contact because every run he's getting hit at the line of scrimmage 1 yard before, 1 yard after, something like that. So
I
again,
completely agree.
impressive. This goes back to we've seen this before though. Regardless if they have Pat stat games or not, every team in college football has Pat stat games. Every team is either going to take advantage of them or they don't. Regardless, at the end of the season, you compile the stats. You see how the team did at the end of the season. This is something we've seen before. This is something we'll probably see again in the next 10 years.
All right. So back to that unicorn point. My question to you is, when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, how bad did you want them to go back to back?
I mean, more than anything, where are you going with this?
More than anything. And that was 2 times in a row. So you've seen that before, right? You saw the Seahawks win the Super Bowl,
Uh, I have seen the Seahawks win the Super Bowl one time.
and you wanted them to do it again.
Correct. I think every fan does.
And this is a very exaggerated argument, right? But I'm saying is, if you wanted to see it again, and I'm pretty sure it would have been just as special, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So what my point is, Ashton Genty, we've seen it before, but I think it's even more special than what Melvin Gordon did. So yes, we've seen it
This is
before,
a
but it's special.
you're asking a specific fan of their team though. So
Like I said, it's an
this is a
exaggerated,
biased opinion.
it's
So
an exaggerated thing. Yeah.
you would have to ask the average fan, would it be as impressive for, and also this is recency bias. So this isn't happening year after year.
hmm
So because it happens every 10 years, this is different, right? So I agree. This is a very exaggerated point. Yes. So a better example of this would be um, teams in the past have won two Super Bowls back to back, right? So then
Chiefs last year.
the next team that wins Super Bowls back to back is that less impressive than it was when the other team did it to the average fan. That would be the argument I think you're trying to make.
Yeah.
So the answer is no, it's not less impressive, but it is something that's been done before. Now, what I will say is if the Chiefs win the third Super Bowl this year, that will be more impressive than a Super Bowl team that won it back to back once. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Something we've never seen before, which is more impressive than something we've seen several times.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
So that's kind of my whole argument. I don't. It has nothing to do with Deion Sanders. It has nothing to do with him being on the Jesus, I can't speak on Colorado and the hype that the players are getting around him, how much social media it has. I'm not looking anything into that. I'm looking straight into play production, what he's doing on the field, and how impressive it is. And that is strictly my argument.
It's special. I get that. It's Travis Hunter is special. I like that unicorn term. I know
Yeah.
it's kind of been thrown around with like Kyle Pitts and stuff, but I believe that Travis Hunter is a true unicorn. Um, you see two-way players in high school all the time. You just never see it in college. And if he can do it in the NFL, then I would start arguing he's an MVP, right? So I definitely get where you say that special unicorn thing is. And I don't think there's an argument that you can put against it, right? It really comes down to the definition of the Heisman at that point is, hey, is it a special award or is it just the most dominant player award? We don't really know.
Right. I mean, I think in most people's terms, the Heisman is the best college football player, right?
Yeah.
Not the most valuable to their team, which would be Genty. Right. This isn't
hmm
an MVP award, which Genty would win. This is the best college football player. And if you can master two sides of the football at a top five level, in my opinion, that is a better football player than somebody who is elite at one.
To me, my GOAT is Tom Brady. What did Tom Brady do a lot of?
Winning.
He won a lot. Travis Hunter's not in the playoffs.
Okay, yeah,
To
but
me, he's not even winning the conference championship.
right, you can't you're talking like team awards though. Like he's not getting the
It's
ball.
a
He's
team
not getting the
game.
ball 37 times a game like Genty is.
He's not averaging 37 carries.
Whatever. He's not touching the ball. What is he averaging somewhere in the 20s, mid to high
20,
20s?
I think he's 25 or 26.
Right. So if Travis Hunter touched the ball 25 times a game, running it, passing it, if he had 25 opportunities, like what would he have done? Now that's a very argumentative statement. People are going to get very hot and bothered by that. Well, you can't play the what if game, whatever. You know what I mean?
No,
Like
we'll play that game.
he's not affecting the game by the ball in his hands that much. He's also eliminating the defensive side of like a wide receiver on the defensive side of the ball, which is as valuable as X amount of carries on offense, right? It's a different way of affecting the game, but at some point, you're still affecting the game in a way.
Yeah, I can get that. My thing is the opportunity. You're saying he didn't get as many opportunities as Genty. That's what happens when you're a receiver. It is easier to
I
hand the
agree.
ball off when you're a wide receiver. If that's a positional battle. So then I would say, hey, let's give him the same opportunities, but then they're not the same opportunities. He's getting more opportunities way downfield.
Right.
Like then you would have to do
It's
uh
it's apples to oranges, right? You're comparing two different positions. It'd be so much easier if they played the same positions. You could just compare strength of schedule, offensive line production, yards, carries, touchdowns. You know what I mean? You can compare everything same to same, and you can be very clear on who's better, who's the better player, that kind of thing. The problem is there's nothing that overlaps, right?
Mhm.
You're affecting the games in two completely different ways. So I guess my argument is, what would Travis Hunter have had to do if you firmly believe Genty deserves this award? What more would Travis Hunter have had to do this season in order to swing your vote to Hunter?
I truly believe he just needed to win more games.
So you think his team needed to win more games? So if Shedeur Sanders fumbled the ball and they lost the game because he fumbled the ball, something like that, like that's what held Travis Hunter back from deserving the award.
Shedeur Sanders fumbled the ball. Who comes onto the defense when the other team's on offense?
But Travis Hunter, yeah, you know what I mean. If there's
Travis Hunter's on the field either
the
way.
kicker misses a game-winning field goal, like something like that, right? Things that are out of Travis's Hunter's control. He did everything he needed to do, but something out of his control ended up having them lose the game. Like you're going to hold that against Travis Hunter?
Yes, there's always something more you can do earlier in the game. You don't. Cam Newton. Have you seen that Cam Newton interview where he said, "I wish I would have jumped on that ball in Super Bowl"? What was it in 2015?
Yeah, that was wild. He didn't jump on that ball. I still to this day don't understand why he didn't.
He said in an interview, "Knowing what I know today, I wish I would have jumped on that ball."
He should have known that in the moment, though.
Yeah, I get that. But what I'm saying is, in hindsight's 2020. So Travis
Sure.
Hunter should have done better earlier in the game, so they wouldn't even be in that scenario. Ashton Genty's getting his team into such a good scenario that they don't even need to worry about their kicker or fumbling the ball.
Okay, so I guess if Boise State loses on Friday, I think it's on Friday. When do they play NL?
It's Friday, Friday.
I think it's Friday. So if they lose that game, then what? Because then they're not in the playoffs either.
That's true.
So then,
Then I would say yes. Then I would start thinking, hey, Travis Hunter has a shot. My thing is, with that argument is not
well,
only I
this
don't.
was your argument.
Wait, all right, yeah. Not only do I think he's not going to do bad, but if they do lose, then I believe I my vote would potentially switch.
So the only thing Travis Hunter could have done more was have the 10 other people on the field play better so that they win more games.
He can be more impactful. He's playing both sides.
What if they don't
It's
throw
a
at him? Like,
Is Colorado better
there's
than
so
Boise
many
State?
arguments for
Is
how the
Colorado a
team
better
should
team
have
than
won.
Boise State? Is Colorado a better team than Boise State?
Yes, I think if they played head to head, I think Colorado would win.
I agree. I agree. And they're not in the playoffs. That goes back to the
Strength of schedule.
strength of schedule, right? But if you look at the team, how many teams did they play that are in the playoffs?
One versus none.
How many teams did Colorado play again that are in the playoffs?
Probably gonna be none.
How many teams did Boise State
Yeah,
play that are going to
I
be
already
in?
said one. Yeah,
Yeah. And what rank are they?
were they 11, 10, 10?
I'm talking Oregon. They're one.
Yeah, yeah. Oregon's one.
So I would argue that Boise State might have played a harder schedule.
I disagree.
And
ESPN disagrees.
the impactful games that really mattered, they played a harder schedule, in my opinion.
Um, I guess we can agree to disagree on that. The
I
other thing you
think
have to think about, and I mean, we're running out of time here. We'll kind of wrap it up here. Um, is if Travis Hunter didn't get hurt, they potentially could have won that Kansas State game. And then, I mean, we might be talking about something completely different.
I 100% agree with that. If Travis Hunter didn't get hurt, I honestly think if Travis Hunter didn't get hurt and they were in the playoffs, I believe I would vote for Travis Hunter.
So essentially, he just shouldn't have gotten hurt, and he would have
He shouldn't have
seen.
gotten hurt. Like, okay, CMC shouldn't have gotten hurt this year and he would have won offensive
No,
player
no,
of the
no,
year.
no. We're comparing Genty and Hunter. We're not comparing
But
other.
I'm saying what if game? What if Robert
No, I'm
Griffin
saying
III never
that's just
got
what he
hurt?
needed to
What if
do.
Robert Griffin III never tore his ACL?
What if, man? What if?
Like, what if game? The only argument I feel like you can make for Kennesaw or for Kansas State is Travis Hunter missed that game. and Ashton Genty missed 4 quarters playing because he got taken out at half. That's the only thing I think I value the Kansas State games, that Kansas State game. Because Travis Hunter didn't play in the hardest game they played. Ashton Genty dominated in the hardest game they played.
Yeah, I, I still just can't get behind Genty. I it's just this unicorn thing that I can't get over, right? Just
I
something we've
get that.
never
Yeah.
seen before, and that's just something I that hold in my mind that is just so much more valuable than
I think it really comes down to your definition of the Heisman, like I said. To me, my definition is the most dominant player. I think Ashton Genty was more dominant against the teams he played than Travis Hunter was against the teams he played. I think Ashton Genty had more of an impact on the games he was in than Travis Hunter did.
I'd have to look back on previous Heisman winners to see if that's how like the voting has went. Like, yeah, that might be your opinion on how it should be, and mine should be, could be different. Everybody's going to have a different opinion on who should be
Yeah.
voted for. There's a very that's the problem with all these awards, right? Is there's no clear cut definition of here's how you win it, here's why you win it. It's just kind of a I don't want to say popularity contest because politically I'm sure it can be, but it shouldn't be. It should just come down to who's better football, who's better who played better, right? Is what it should come down to. Um, so I mean, wrapping it up, both had a great season.
For sure.
I think they both deserve this award. But when you compare the two, I'm a firm believer Travis Hunter deserves this award. Ashton Genty is a close second. Like we briefly talked about in the beginning, it's just very unlucky that they both had to be playing this way in this season against each other. Genty probably would have won it any other season over the last, I
Oh,
don't know,
for sure.
probably 3, 4 seasons with this kind of performance. So I love it. I think it was a great conversation. Um, Appreciate everybody who tuned in for this one. Leave a comment. Obviously, I would love to hear some feedback on, some of my arguments. If you feel that they were invalid, if you have some other statistics that I missed that disprove what I was saying, would love to hear back from it. I'm always looking for constructive criticism. If I'm missing things, if what I'm saying is factually incorrect, I hope I never do something like that. I try to only speak on things that I have knowledge on or that actually are correct. So I don't want to be spreading false information. So I think that goes for Reed as well. So I think we're
For
always looking
sure.
for feedback on, why we're right, why we're wrong. Get some comments going on in the comment section. Start a little banter back and forth. We can chime in with our opinions. So I think it was a good one, Reed.
I loved it. And this college football year, I think we are blessed to have this Heisman race. Um, it's something special. You don't get a Heisman race this close ever. I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time we had a Heisman race this close. Usually it's just one dominant guy. And it's something, it's a good feeling to not know when those ballots come in and the Heisman is announced, we don't know whose name's getting called. I truly don't know. We didn't mention it, but Ashton Genty gets one more game than Travis Hunter does, and I think if he dominates in this game, his Ashton Genty will get a lot more votes because he ended the season good. Um, Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty, it's a great race, and it was fun watching it. And I'm excited to see who gets crowned the king.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. We can touch base on it next week, but I think we're going to jump back to NFL, get back on track. So
Sure.
it's been great.
Thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate it. Like Jameson said, leave your opinions down below. Tell us we're right, wrong, all of that. Don't forget to subscribe and watch us next week. We'll see you later.
Peace out, everybody.